Welcome to You Don't Know Ball. Today, we're going to be talking the San Francisco 49ers with WayneBreezie. If you don't know ball and want to know ball, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, let us know in the comments what you think the 49ers record prediction will be this year. Wayne, just to start it off, what was your favorite 49ers draft pick this year and why?
Oh man, I'm a sucker for running backs. And so I've been mocking and doing my research on Isaac Guerendo, 4-3 guy out of Louisville. So when we drafted him in the fourth round, I got super excited and I was like, yep, we got us a winner. Now I know a lot of people don't like when the Niners draft running backs because it doesn't really pan out. But I will say this. It's usually when they draft running backs in the third round. This was a fourth round draft pick. So I'm gonna let that sit there. But yeah, Isaac Guerendo, man, I'm excited to see him. I think he's going to be able to help the 49ers out on special teams right away. And if you want to make an impact and get the team to notice you, you go out there in special teams, you make a name for yourself. So I think he'll get the opportunity to do it with his ball skills and his speed.
Yeah, I know they, outside of Garendo, they also drafted, I believe it was Schaefer, or was he with an undrafted free agent?
Yeah, he was the undrafted kid.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and so look, he was a great baller in college. I'm surprised he even went undrafted. I think because he didn't test too well. Cody Schrader, he didn't test too
Schrader.
well. Meaning speed, right? So he was a
Right.
slow running back, but on the football field, he doesn't play slow. So if he can go out there and just work his way up that depth chart, once training camp starts, once these mini camps start, he'll have an opportunity to go out there and hopefully, try to win a spot. It's going to be tough, but he can try to get him a spot on the San Francisco 49ers running back room.
No, and I actually love the answer, with the Garendo because, when he came on my radar towards the end of the draft process, I was like, hold on a minute, like this guy, he's got all the, the writing on him to be a gem. And he fell to, as you know, as a Niners fan, he fell to the perfect situation. I mean, coming to the Shanahan offense,
Mhm.
you're all of a sudden in a situation where not that CMC's getting older, you don't want to hear that he's getting older, but we know how running backs are. The shelf life, to an extent, you can only trust for so long before you start to inevitably, slow down a little bit. And if he starts slowing down a little bit, all of a sudden, like to your point, Garendo can be that perfect rebalancing point and kind of that scat back this year, but slowly transition into that starting role and kind of be your guy's number one over the years. I think it was a fantastic use of the draft capital, and he went a little earlier than I expected, but again, to the best situation possible. And you guys got yourself definitely one of those guys that could be a gem.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And there were two guys that I was hoping that they were looking. It was Jalen Wright. I think he went in might have went in the third round. I'm not sure. I can't remember
Yeah,
off
to
the top of my head
Miami.
from Tennessee. He was another 4-3 guy, a little slower than Isaac Guerendo, but definitely more experience in starting. And I think, like you said, Guerendo went to the perfect situation, right? He was like he didn't start much in college. And it was just because of depth, right? Like he went to Wisconsin, transferred out of there because they weren't really, they weren't really running the ball much. And then he went to Louisville, and then he was just behind guys that were already starting. And so, good news for him is he has plenty of tread on his tires, and he's an explosive guy, right? He be a one quick guy, one hit guy, hit that hole, make that one cut, boom, take off. You can't catch him, but he's really good in pass pro, and I think that's something that Kyle Shanahan loves when it comes to running backs. If you want to get out on the field, you got to be able to protect your quarterback and read the blitz and all that type of stuff. And again, he just has to show up. I think he'll get his opportunity on special teams. But the Cody Schrader one, that kid is going to be intriguing because he's a great running back, and I just think because he ran slow, that was the issue. But with Garendo, you can get back to that wide zone running, zone scheme, outside zone. That's what the Niners are great at.
No, absolutely. All right, so with that being your favorite draft pick, the whole other part of the offseason that's really important as well. What was your favorite free agency move that the Niners made this year?
Oh man, listen, I'm big on edge rushing, and when they went out and got Leonard Floyd, who isn't like the super duper big splash edge rusher, but I think again coming into the system, I think he would be the perfect complement to Nick Bosa, right? Because on Bosa one side you got this technician, this guy that great with his hands, good power, good bend, can get by with speed, moves, all this type of stuff. But he's not the fastest guy. He's like a really solid edge rusher, a really dominant one. But they're double teaming, they're tripling, they're chipping, they're doing all these things. So on the opposite side, you bring in the opposite that can still be effective, but he's going to give you the speed element. And so when I think about what the Niners were doing back in 2019, that free agency, they went after and got D Ford. And D Ford, when he was healthy, that 49ers front was like ferocious, right? You had speed, you had a guy that could contain the edge, you had Nick Bosa, who was getting one-on-ones in his rookie season, and they were tearing it up. So I think with Leonard Floyd, that had to be my favorite, free agency signing that they brought in. A lot of guys. I like Devondre Campbell as well. I think he'll be able to fill the gap really well for Dre Greenlaw out with the injury, the Achilles injury. But it's got to be Leonard Floyd for me because I think the Niners up front, they want to make sure that they're disrupting the quarterback's rhythm right off the bat. It allows their secondary to be better. The linebackers can tee off, play coverage, stop the run. So I think it starts up front, and that's what they did.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And what I want to say also on that is, just a little underrated piece to it. But you're bringing in Leonard Floyd from, one of your guys' main rivals. And the reality is this too. Look, you know it better than anybody. You guys have been, one or two plays away from being Super Bowl champs, two times over the last half decade. So the reality is you bring in a guy who already is that Super Bowl champ, coming from a team that is a very big rival, and he brings that fire, brings that mentality, and brings that experience when it comes time. That it's always very helpful to have guys like that in the room because it kind of quells everybody else down. If you guys inevitably next couple of years, you guys will probably find yourself back in that same game. So it's like having someone like that. You just have remind everybody it's just another game. I've been here, we're here. I think a thing like that is very underrated. Part of bringing in a guy like Leonard Floyd.
I agree, 100%, 100%. That veteran mentality, his skill set, just to help to teach the young guys. Because the 49ers still have a lot of young edge rushers, right? And I think that's what they need. Because even Nick Bosa, as great as he is, he's still a young guy. And so now you bring in a Leonard Floyd, a little bit older, Super Bowl champ, guy that can come in and, just help get what they already have in there, help develop those guys as well.
Yeah, 100%. And also, like, if you want to look at, like, Leonard Floyd as well, after he left the Bears, he's been a pretty productive edge rusher, 9.5, 10.5 sack seasons. We saw it even with, Buffalo. I think the biggest thing is when you don't ask him to be that number one pass rusher, he can be really productive on that defensive line. And going back to kind of the talk about being a Super Bowl champ and, the 49ers have been so close, what do you think they need to do to kind of get over the hump? Or is it just kind of like a string of luck that, hopefully they hit on if they make it back this year?
It's so weird, right? They literally be 7 minutes away from winning a Super Bowl. Both Super Bowls, they were 7 minutes, just about 7 minutes, a little over 7 minutes away from closing out. I don't know if attrition kicks in. It's like you're playing Patrick Mahomes, who's the best quarterback in the NFL, and then you got to go against Andy Reid, who's just in his bag. And then we can't leave out Spags, right? Because this dude is probably one of the greatest defensive coordinators of all time. And it's just so funny that the same player on both sides of the Patrick Mahomes on the offensive side, Chris Jones on the defensive side. Like these are the guys that they make sure are there because they just seem to have the 49ers number. It's like Reed has Shanahan's number, Mahomes has the defense's number, and Chris Jones has the offense's number. And it doesn't matter how close the game is, how far spread the game is out. At some point, I think attrition kicks in. The defense just falls a little flat toward the end of the game. If you go back and watch both Super Bowls, it's just like they just fell flat. Like they just couldn't stop a play. I will say, though, in this past Super Bowl, I mean, if Dre Greenlaw doesn't get injured running onto the football field, I mean, it's a different story. And just a little fun fact, if you didn't know this, the last two times we played Kansas City, we lost, right? We lost the Super Bowl and then the regular season game a few years back when they came out with the first year we got Christian McCaffrey and the trade, and he kind of suited up, but he didn't start that game, but he played a little bit. But if you remember in that game, you know who got injured? Dre Greenlaw. And before Greenlaw got injured, Kansas City couldn't do nothing, right? They couldn't do anything. And it was kind of like the same way. He was making sure Travis Kelsey wasn't getting Tito, like he was keeping stuff underneath. And and you gotta chalk it up to Patrick Mahomes. And the dude is smart. He realized that. Hey, you ready, Kelsey? Time to turn up, right? And so it's just an unfortunate event. And I just think that the defense just they just kind of ran out of gas because they let Kansas City literally march down the field, not once but twice. To one to tie the game and the other to win the game in overtime. So I'm not saying the Niners won't ever beat them, but they gotta come out with some type of like have a special something later on in the game because the game is really good. Like you watch the game, it's really good, but it's at the end they gotta figure out how to have something special to stop. Patrick Mahomes. Don't give him the damn ball. Like try to make sure he don't have the ball or something like that. I don't know. It's just crazy.
No, yeah. Well, I would say to your point about Dre Greenlaw also, like, specifically with the Niners, and you guys run a fantastic variant of it. When you're running a 4-3, it's not like you just lose one of your linebackers in a 3-4. It still is a tragedy. But, if you, and this the thing too, is minus, Fred Warner, it's not like him and Dre Greenlaw are the backbone very much of that 4-3. If you don't have two linebackers on the field for a majority of your defensive play calls, and you don't trust both of them that same way, and now you have two, you know what I mean, two potential liabilities on the field at the same time. That's a huge difference as well. And that's, yeah, to your point. If Dre Greenlaw stays out there, very underrated point, but like very different game for sure.
Yeah, man. When I tell you how you got to chalk it up to Patrick Mahomes, though, right? I don't know if a lot of people don't like him. I don't like him, but I respect him, right? It's almost like Kobe Bryant. Didn't like him, but I respected him because these guys have that innate ability to take over a game, and they have that. What did Kobe the black that Mamba factor? Right? I feel like that's what Patrick Mahomes has in football, and he just located the weakness and he picked on the linebacker. He said, "Oren Burks, I'm coming after you, right? Because you're not Dre Greenlaw, right?" And so that's what he did, man. And they kept his team in the game, and they pulled out the victory. A lot of other stuff I could talk about that I felt like was a little weird in that game, but I just feel like when it comes to head coaching, sometimes you just got to keep it simple, stupid. Like you just run the ball. Like you just run. Why not run the ball? I didn't understand that, but that's not why I'm here. But yeah, that's why they got more running backs because I think even Christian McCaffrey was dinged up in that game, and things just weren't the same. So attrition definitely kicked in.
No, 100%. Now, with that being said, we've heard a lot of the rumors about Debo and Ayuk, and obviously you took Ricky Pearsall as the first wide receiver, or first round wide receiver. Do you think as we move on throughout the year or even in offseason that you see Debo or Ayuk get moved? I know it's probably more leaning Debo at this point and possibly extending Ayuk, but do you see that as a possibility or do you think they run it back with all the weapons this year?
Ah man, they didn't trade those guys by draft time. They running it back, man. Like Debo's not going anywhere. Ayuk, they're looking to extend him. The reports are out, the rumors are out that he's looking for north of that $30 million per year, and I think the Niners are gonna have to hit him with one of those 4 year, maybe $130 million type of contracts, 128, 130 million. Make sure that fully guaranteed number is suffice for him. But listen, I don't think that they should move on from any of these guys. Ricky Pearsall's a different type of receiver. You know what I learned over, just the many years of watching football? Like not every receiver is the same type of receiver. Like we just think receivers go down there and catch the ball. Now you gotta and in most offenses, yeah. But for Kyle Shanahan, he has specific types of receivers. And those that are the disciples of Kyle Shanahan, they look for specific types of receivers, right? And so you look at Brandon Ayuk, you say to yourself, if we moved on from Brandon Ayuk, who replaces him as that route runner? Who replaces that? And as good as I think Pearsall will get to at some point, he's just not there. And if you let Ayuk go, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to pay him a lot of money. You are bugging. Like this dude commands double teams, and when he's man to man. He's beating the coverage. He's whipping routing. He's fading route. He's doing every type of route he can. He's literally always open. He was open plenty of times in the Super Bowl. It's just the pressure was there and Brock didn't see it. So like this dude is getting open, and you're talking about a player with like 78 catches for 1,300 plus yards as the number 4 option. Like at the end of the day, I'm like, yo, he's not even the main target. Like he's not even the main option. So he's a vital piece to me to what Kyle Shanahan wants, because the main thing that I didn't talk about was his blocking ability downfield when you're running the ball, and he has the ability to seal that edge and make sure that the running back gets to at least extra yards in the run game. So losing Brandon Ayuk would be critical, but losing Debo is probably be even more critical. So I just don't see how Kyle will want that, because Kyle likes to play chess, and the mismatches, the matchups that he puts out there. He wants you to put a linebacker on Debo. He wants you to put anybody that's afraid of contact on Debo. And I know the NFL, but some guys just don't like the tackle. Okay. And that's what he wants, because that's when Debo ignites. That's when he kind of turns on that X factor, that little ability. He's just a mean player. So, to lose those two pieces, even though because they drafted 2 wide receivers, that's a little perplexed for me, because you're still trying to develop Pearsall. Jacob Cowing isn't one of those guys either. And then you got to look at who's on the roster, like the Ronnie Bells, the Danny Grays. Does he get utilized this year? If he's just a one-trick speed pony, so there's just so many avenues. Brandon Ayuk, Debo Samuel are your 1 and 2 wide receivers, and then you can kind of filter in everybody else who you have. So I wouldn't be surprised they keep 6 wide receivers this year, 6 to 7, because they want to see some guys develop. And if they're going to probably trade anybody, it may be Juwan Jennings. He has not signed his tender yet.
So I was gonna say, because Juwan Jennings, as you know, he's been a huge safety blanket for you guys. But that can that's kind of like the role that I would expect Ricky to take on his first year. Because to your point, like I was very big on Ricky Pierce, and Hunter was as well, like huge on Ricky coming out. There's a lot of measurables and like odd statistics that like translate him very well, like his future in the league. Like if if you're looking just based off projections of certain like height, weight, catch radius, and like the production he had because of that Florida offense, he should transition very well and actually be like much more productive in the NFL than he was in college. But I was also going to say, like, I don't know how you feel about Jacob Cowing, but I kind of view Jacob Cowing almost as like he's like almost like a Brandon Cooks kind of like 2.0 mold. Again, I don't think I don't know if that's exactly the ceiling he can hit, but that's how I view him, like his transition.
Bro, have you seen him beat double coverage down the field, like just about like on every play? And so you look at Brandon Cooks, you look at this little small dude, tough guy, tough wide receiver from the Saints, Cowboys. That's where he is now. I think you look at him, he's still at this age beating double coverage. I've not seen too many small wide receivers that could get down the field. And when I look at Jacob Cowing, if you watch that bowl game he played in, you might not have saw all throughout some of his film, but you watch that bowl game, he lit it up, like literally he was the man. And I think he does have that ability to be like, hey, Brent, that's a great comp too, by the way. I didn't think about that. I think he does.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
No, he has the ability, dude, and I think, with 4.3 speed, 4.4, I can't remember what his speed was, but with that type of speed, it's not even like him being super fast. It's like he plays with the coverage, and then the coverage thinks they have him, and then he turns on the Jets, and then he's separating like 5 yards in the end zone. I'm actually excited about that. It's something about these 4th round picks I'm excited about. I think I'm excited about all 3 4th round picks. I love all the picks, but I'm excited about Malik Mustafa, him, and Jacob Cowing. Like those are my guys. I think those 4th round picks are going to set the tone.
I'm telling you, bro. And Hunter is my witness. Jacob Cowing was one of my guys through the whole
Arizona.
process. I wouldn't have been surprised if he went. Honest to God, I wouldn't have been surprised if he went like even late 2nd round. I'm honestly very shocked he fell as far as he did. I think you guys got a really, really good one though.
Yeah, and then you could utilize him in the slot too. And it's like I said, like these are pieces that Kyle Shanahan wants. He looks for receivers that are more interchangeable, not just the one trick ponies anymore, right? So the fact he can beat double coverage is key, but you could also utilize him and hide him in the slot, and then he can move around because he can get open really quickly. And so now you're not really skipping a beat. You said Brandon Cooks, and that was dope, but when I do my shows, I kind of compared him to kind of like replacing what they wanted out of Ray Ray McLeod, which is he's now with the Atlanta Falcons. And when they got Ray Ray from the Steelers, that's exactly what they were hoping to get. That guy that could beat him down the field, do all that stuff, line up in the backfield, take a handoff, do type of end around reverse, all that type of stuff. I think that's what you get out of Jacob Cowan.
Oh, absolutely.
No, definitely. And I think the other thing, by the way, he ran, it was a 4.38. But
4-3. I knew he was a 4-3 guy, but I don't know why I was thinking 4-4-1. But that two 4-3 guys in the
It's
fourth
fast.
round.
Well, I mean, I think the beauty with him as well is he was productive in college. Like he had two
Very.
1,000 plus yard seasons, and then their 800-yard season. And going into this year, obviously, you have Ayuk kind of ascending, and then you have Debo kind of playing that role that you've had him play these last couple of years. And we've saw what Christian McCaffrey can be. Are you worried that with having to pay Ayuk and, Debo being kind of pricey, if Brock plays well this year, you're going to have to pay him. Are you worried that the extension money could hurt the level of the team?
Nah, see, like, I'm not a big worrier about the salary cap. Like it goes up every year. And the Niners, like Brock would have to do, in my opinion. Do you remember? I don't know if you guys remember this because I know I don't. Like when was Tony Romo like a top pick in the draft? Like, did he
I think
go
he was a fourth rounder.
fourth rounder? That's exactly what I was thinking, right? And I feel like Brock is in that tier, even though he was a seventh rounder. So but I know the quarterback money, it goes up every year. I think the Niners are like wizards at this backloading deal when it comes to these contracts. And so, like, if you pay Brandon Ayuk, let's say you give him the money, right? And he's on the books for 14.1 million this year, right? And if you do the extension, that 14.1 million is probably going to go down to like 6 million, 5 million. It's going to significantly drop in 2024. It's going to be low in 2025. And then in 2026 is when the big number is probably going to hit the 49ers. And then they go back and they look at the guys that have got a little older and they be like, hey man, would you mind taking the pay cut if you're you kind of like decline, sort of like what we saw what happened with Eric Armstead this year, right? They went to him, they paid him the money, and then they were like, hey man, you're just not the same. We would love to have you here. You mind taking, he's set on the books to make like 20 plus million this year. They were like, hey man, you mind if we pay you what 3, 4, 5 million? You know what I'm saying? And he left. And so like I it's a game of numbers, a Game of Thrones, it's a game of numbers. And I think the Niners are in perfect position to play the game. And if they have to move on from a player that's been tenured here for a while, they will move on. I don't expect Trent Williams to be around too long, and that's why I think they're all in. That's why they're going to bring these guys back. They gotta keep that offense intact. George Kittle's getting older, but guys are restructuring, and so the restructurers help. And so I think Brock Purdy will be just fine when it comes down to after this year. I think they'll find a way to pay him, even though he will be going into the fourth year of his rookie contract, not this season, but next season. So they technically have a couple of years to wait on Brock Purdy. And I think the Niners will milk the heck out of that. Now, Brock Purdy's camp might feel some type of way about it because they want to get an extension. But when you're under contract, you're under contract. And Brock Purdy makes $700,000 a year. So I don't
Right.
see him missing any practices with those penalties. You know what I'm saying? It's just the way it is.
Right. No, I lied my ass off. Tony Romo was undrafted.
Undrafted.
It's
I'm trying
crazy.
to tell you. And the reason why I brought him up is because look how he turned out. Now I know he
Right.
didn't win anything, but he was to me a damn good quarterback, a really good mind, and like football mind. Like he's just really smart when it comes to the game. And there's just some unfortunate things. Like he would make silly mistakes at the worst opportune parts of the game or whatever like that. I don't see Brock falling into that category. I think he's a little bit more, tuned up when it comes to football and making mistakes, but I could see the Niners just milking that contract out to the very end. They'll backload some guys, they'll restructure other guys when it's time to pay Brock. So I don't think Brock right now is even in the equation. I think right now that focus is to find a way to get Brandon Ayuk back. Because regardless of who they drafted, you lose Brandon Ayuk, you lose a significant part on your offense.
Right. 100%.
And I just want to throw this in real quick too, because I want to see how you feel about this. Because I know I've talked to Hunter about this before. We definitely discussed this. To me, Brock strikes me the type of guy where it's like, I don't think he doesn't seem like the type of guy that's gonna walk in and disregard everything the Niners have done for him and how much that he is a part of the system as much as that they benefit from him. I don't think he's just gonna walk in and be like, yeah, you're either dropping me 300 M's or I'm out. You know what I mean? I think it'll be much more like, all right, what works for you that also works for me, so we can keep this marriage that's been very happy going along.
It's funny that you said, Brock is kind of like he's just a cornball, right? So like I kind of agree with you. I don't see him turning into a super studded type diva, but you know what? Business changes all the time. And if Brock has another great season, I can't unless he's representing himself. I don't think his camp will allow him to be taken advantage of. But I do agree with you. I think Brock understands that he was gifted an opportunity by being drafted last, put in a situation, and he's just not looking backwards. So we'll have to see what happens. But I don't think Brock is going to be like, "Yo, I need a $300 million contract." I mean, if he wins the Super Bowl, man, like that might be a different discussion. But at the end of the day, I think Brock is the guy that you just described, and let's just hope he stays that way because money does change people. Like like when you start talking about getting paid. And right now he's still on that rookie deal. So the Niners need to find a way to get this Super Bowl under their belt.
No, they definitely, yeah, no, they definitely do. And to your point, if they do, that definitely does change the discussions a lot.
Yeah.
Yep. So, kind of moving over from the offense to the defense, are you expecting the defense to go back to form? I know, things really didn't work out with Steve Wilks last year, and it was kind of tough because you feel like you had a really talented defense, and then it just kind of came up short at times, it feels like, and didn't feel like Kyle Shanahan really agreed with the calls all the time.
Yeah, man. You ever when I think of Steve Wilks, I think he's a great football mind, right? He's more like a philosopher, right? Like, so you ever go to class and you just sat in class and your lecturer just talk, and there was like no hands on. I
Mm-hmm.
just feel like that was Steve Wilks when it came to his defense. That's why he sat up in the booth. And I'm not saying you can't be aggressive from up top, but like literally, like that's how I think the Niners received it, and they just couldn't react. Like that, I think that part of their game when he changed the pass rush a little bit, right? And so their job, they had to make sure that they understood, they were reading, why they were reading. I just think there was too much thinking going on. And it's football. Like it's not much thinking you got to do. You got to know your assignment. If you're out on the edge and it's a run play, you got to contain that edge. You got to make sure and you kick that running back inside so guys can make the tackle. If you're a defensive tackle, you got to make sure that offensive lineman ain't pushing you back into that second tier because you got to create and fill those holes for your linebackers to come in and smack and fill those holes and get the tackle. There was a lot of missed tackles on that defense, but you know what they did get better at? Freaking turnovers. Like if we can trash Steve Wilks all we want, but the Niners were tied for first in interceptions, and they were the number one intercepting team in on defense, and they finished top three defense overall when it came to points allowed. So it's so weird, right? It's like that, but at times there were bonehead mistakes, and I think it all started in that Minnesota game, right? Like that Minnesota game on Monday Night Football, and Steve Wilks calls an all-out blitz to end the half, and Kirk Cousins hits Jordan Addison, and Charvarius Mooney Ward has the interception, and Addison takes it out his hand, and it goes in for a touchdown. I think that is when the trust started to differentiate a little bit between Kyle Shanahan and Steve Wilks. And I believe after that, he came out of the booth and just things just got a little awkward between the players. And this is when I knew he was gone. You ready? I can't remember if it was week. I don't remember the week, but I remember Nick Bosa at a presser pretty much threw him under the bus. And that's when I was like, oh, he not gonna be here much longer. And so they rocked out with him all the way to the end. In the Super Bowl, there was some defensive miscues. But the thing I would say about Steve Wilkes is he not out there doing the tackling. What the missed tackles got to do? Okay, so the pressure wasn't the same, right? That we didn't have the high sack rate, but the pressures were up, but we just couldn't get to the quarterback. I thought that was more offensive scheming against the defense, right? They're getting the ball out of their hands literally in less than 2 seconds. It was ridiculous. Like it was quarterbacks that I knew drop back was getting the ball out on quick throws, right? And I'm just like, dang, like we can't get to the quarterback. The pressures are there. We just can't get to him. So unfortunately, Steve Wilkes is gone. To answer your question, Nick Sorensen was chosen to bring the Niners defense back to that reactive mode type where that when they say hike, that defensive front tees off and is ferocious. So yeah, I definitely think they get back to the script on what they were with D'Amico Ryans and Robert Saleh.
No, yeah, that certainly is the ideal situation for the Niners. So the next question we have for you here is, and again, this could relate to offense or defense. So anywhere on the ball that you're thinking, it could even be special teams if you want, you know. But is there anywhere on this team that depth worries you at all?
Yeah, it's gonna always be the offensive line, right? And so like the Niners don't really invest in offensive linemen. Okay. So they spend their money on and I can explain it and then people are not gonna like it, but the Niners will invest their money on the one position that is old school. So you got to think old school football. One position, left tackle, is one of the highest paid positions in football, and it will continue to be that because they protect the blind side of a right-handed quarterback, right? And then it's opposite if it's a left-handed quarterback, you're going to do that right tackle spot, right? And so they got that, right? And they traded for him, and they got it, and they extended them, and blah blah blah. So Trent's here, boom, boom. You got your pillar, and then I think the second position on the offensive line that Kyle covets is the center. Because the center, has to go out there, make sure he's sliding the protections, doing all the types of things. He's doing all the communicating without literally saying a word. And that's where that cohesiveness comes in. I'm not super sold on Jake Brendo. Kyle Shanahan is sold on Jake Brendo, but I will like to see if Jake Brendo takes another leap this year forward. They drafted Aaron Banks. He's on his rookie deal is about to expire at the end of this season. And then it's Colton McKivitz, the fifth round draft pick they drafted a few years back. Can he take that leap forward? And then they got some young guys that they drafted this year, guards. They got Jared Kingston from USC. They got Dominic Pooney from Kansas. So will those guys be able to step up and take the job from Spencer Burford or John Feliciano, which is that savvy vet that they want to be able to fill in? They like guys that are versatile on the offensive line. And I think this is why they don't heavily invest in it. And what do I mean by that is they need guys that run really good 10-yard splits and really good 20-yard shuttles. And if they do the three cone and that junk is in the sixes or the low sevens, it's a winner chicken dinner for Kyle Shanahan. He don't care what school you went to or what, you're going to be on that team because the 49ers offense likes to move east to west, not north to south. They like to move left to right, horizontal, not vertical, right? And so it comes down to how quick and how athletic those offensive linemen are. And, the Ravens, I think, really took the guy that the Niners wanted, that they had first. I'm not going to say they didn't want Dominic Pooney, but I think Roger Rosengarten was the dude, and the Ravens sniped him right before. And so they drafted Renardo Green out of Florida, and then in that they moved up in the third and got Dominic Pooney from Kansas. So that if but that's the question mark. Why? Because it's it's just always going to be the question mark. It's just the question mark. The right tackle spot was weak, but I think it was because the right guard spot was weak, and I think as a tackle, you overcompensate, and a lot of it's just going to fall on you. And even in the Super Bowl, and I'm not trying to throw any of my players under the bus because I love them all, but even in the Super Bowl, the take out there with Chris Jones had a free rusher to Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy had to kind of like throw the ball into the dirt to avoid the sack. They blamed Colton McKivitz. He was the first blame, right? And so then, offensive lineman came out and said, nah, man, how is it his fault if he's blocking his guy, and then he kind of threw another guy under the bus, which was his partner. So the offseason has been weird so far. I can't wait to see what the room looks like. But it's offensive line for me. If I had to pick a specific, group, not even a position, just a group, because I don't know what the rotation is going to look like this year.
Yeah,
No, yeah, I think I'm with you on the fact that I don't know what the rotation is going to look like. I think though I would lean, obviously Pooney making the transition from tackle to guard, but he is just more of a guard in the NFL. It's like just the way he moves and everything. And you're gonna have if assuming he would take that left guard spot, you're gonna have a lot of length on that O line, a lot of speed. That's how I envision it. But like you're saying, it could go a lot of different ways. It just depends what looks best to Shanahan at camp. So it definitely is a question mark because we literally don't know what the starting rotation is going to look like.
I
yeah.
agree 100%.
I did have a kind of a question just to touch on the O line part a little bit more. Trent is going to be 36 going into the season. And you made the point that they don't really invest in the O line. And, if you look at the 49ers, they have, really invested in their skill positions. That just kind of seems to be the philosophy they have. Are you worried about kind of a lack of succession plan at left tackle as Trent gets older? Or is that something that you think they're going to address, maybe a year from now?
See, I'm not worried because I feel like there's two positions again that they covet,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's the tackle and the center. And I just feel like they're always a step ahead when it comes to that. I think Trent, if he finishes out this year, and you got to remember, Trent and Kyle has one of the greatest rapport of all time. Like they're literally friends, right? I guarantee you, Trent will give Kyle the heads up. It's going to be a Joe Staley enactment, right? He'll give him the heads up. They will trade. They will find a way to get the piece that they need to fit. And see, the 49ers don't care about draft picks because they are in that succession of winning. And
Mm-hmm.
so they're going to be drafting late anyway. And so they will give up whatever they need to give up if they need to fulfill a hole like that. I really think that's a position that they covet. The Niners are, unless they just really bomb this year, they won't be in position to draft a high tackle anyway. So at the end of the day, I think that's what they do, and so the same thing goes for the center. If they will trade for those guys, they will make sure that they go out and they're doing their due diligence. Shout out to the scouts and find the perfect fit. And they want to, you hear John Lynch say he's on the phone all the time. They're not just calling about our players. We're calling and asking around about other players as well. And there's going to be some free agents coming up soon. And so that's where the Niners will spend money and things like that if they get the whim of Trent Williams wanting to walk off into the sunset. And I only see him doing that. I know he's getting older. Linemen can play to they like 40s if they
Right.
have the desire. But if we win, I think Trent walks off into the sunset. If we lose, I think it's like 50-50, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because he wants that chip.
Oh, yeah, you can't blame him. He's been this close. He's been this close twice.
Twice.
You know what I mean? It's like he wants to run off in the sunset. Yes, we already talked about it earlier. Like I'm with you 100%. And I was gonna say that's literally what I was gonna ask next, but you already answered it for me. Is it was kind of like if you guys win is then that kind of is the one example where all right, you know what, we did it. Now you guys have to worry about that. You know what I mean? I'm gonna get, you know what, we did it. You guys have a little bit more leeway now. But yeah, no. So there's a lot of ways to look at it. Definitely a lot of contingencies, but regardless, the bottom line is we expect the Niners to be really good again, as they should be. And Trent will be the tackle this year. So no matter what, John Lynch working those phones, they'll figure something out.
Agreed.
So, kind of going into this year as we kind of wrap this up, what 49er do you think will make the biggest leap this year?
Man, that's tough. There's a lot of players though playing on their contract year.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of my favorite guys is Diamador Lenoir. And I thought he made a leap last year, and he's coming out as being talked about being one of the most versatile pieces that they have. This is a kid that you can line up in the nickelback spot, a kid you can line up outside, but he's playing on that contract year, and I feel like when players do that, like they give a little extra oomph. But as far as leaping forward, like a player that hasn't really stood out yet, I'm gonna go with a player from the 2020 draft, same draft as Brock Purdy. I don't know. I'm still high on Drake Jackson, and I know they got the kid out of USC. They brought him in here. Due to health, he hasn't really been able to really get going. I guarantee y'all, man. I think Drake Jackson is going to be the person to watch as he gets his health back to par, where he needs to be. I think Drake Jackson is going to have a great career because now you got Bosa and you got Leonard Floyd, and even though he'll be spelling those guys on whichever side, like now he's gonna really get the fine tools and tuning by watching these guys. You got the right pillars and the right mentors in there for him. And all he has to do is find a way to stay healthy. So I'm gonna go with Drake Jackson from that 2020 draft. He was the 49ers, I believe, second round pick in that draft. That was the year we had a second round pick. And I think he makes a leap forward. It might not be a huge leap forward, but I think he makes a name for himself. Because last year he came out, started off, got 3 sacks, and got injured. It's kind of like what happened, like, and so my theory philosophy on injuries in the 49ers is weird, so I'll leave that off the air. But I think he got stashed. That's what I'm gonna say. I just think he got stashed because you could do that somehow. You just gotta declare injury. But yeah, he did have surgery, so he's still recovering. He didn't show up to OTAs, but I do expect him to be back at camp, training camp.
No, yeah, and I love that answer as well because Drake Jackson, one of my guys coming out that 2022 class. I'm surprised he fell as late as he did in the second round. And to your point, he just got to get over the injury hump. This is a guy with a
That's it,
lot of
bro.
skill set, good setting the edge, good in the run game, but also definitely has a good repertoire of moves. I like Drake Jackson because that's not who I thought you were going to go with. If you went with Dalmador Lenore, I would have said that was that would have been a good one too. I like Drake Jackson a lot though. I'm happy with that one, of
Appreciate that.
course. And then, so we got another great question for you here before the final one, just kind of like a fun, more personal anecdote one. But before we move into that one, what is your ceiling, and then what simultaneously is your floor for the Niners this year?
As far as like their record,
Because I think we kind of know the ceiling. We've already kind of talked about ceiling is probably Super Bowl aspirations, right?
right?
We already kind of know the ceiling. What would you say though? Because we already know the ceiling. On the floor though, yeah, like how low could things go if worst case scenario,
Listen,
perhaps?
man. Worst case scenario is they lose their quarterback. And you have to be prepared for that. And the question will be, can Josh Dobbs, who I think is a backup quarterback in the NFL, how can he, smart kid, but you see he's only good over a certain amount of stretch of games, right? So he'll give you 2, 3 good games, and then he's back to normal, right? And so that's the scariest part. I mean, so to me, I just don't see how the team can take that many leaps back and have that low of a season with a healthy quarterback, a healthy running back, healthy receivers. If health is on their side, I mean the ceiling is high. But if health isn't on their side and they lose a detrimental piece like their quarterback, I even think, and I'm not putting this out there, but even if they was to lose a guy like Nick Bosa, I think they could still find a way to maintain. But if they lose their quarterback, it's a wrap. Like it's a wrap. The good news is they'll be drafting first. Like, and I don't mean to say it in a negative way, but that's the good news. And now, do they get another quarterback? Like I'm telling, listen, I have crazy theories. Like crazy theory. If Brock got injured, Kyle Kyle does not covet injured quarterbacks. He will move on. So
Yeah,
if that
Purdy
if that,
has had injuries in the
It's the
past.
track
Yeah,
record for sure. You're telling no lies. And look, there's no such thing as crazy theories for me and Hunter. Like we've had some crazy theories that it actually have ended up panning out relatively much better than we expected. So there's no crazy theories here on YDKB, bro. As a matter of fact, we love the crazier the theory. Sometimes then it's the sweeter when it comes true, right?
listen, I'm telling you, first of all, you talked about money earlier. And if the Niners wanted to save money, they won't pay a quarterback. They'll just get another one. Like
that's
I'm just
true.
telling you, there's so many different ways this can go. I'm all in on Brock. I think Brock is that dude. He has the it factor. He is a little different as far as size, strength. That doesn't mean he doesn't have the abilities, but at some point, them attributes, you know what I'm saying? Like there's a reason why we went drafted in the 7th round, right? And so I think Brock Purdy, sky's the limit for him. He's got to make sure that he finds a way to stay healthy. That's it. Because after that, he tore his UCL, and that injury must wasn't really that serious as
Right.
they were making it sound. Because I play baseball, and all I kept hearing was, "Oh my gosh, Tommy John surgery, Tommy John surgery." Like, yo, just get the surgery, take a year off, chill out, come back, right? And they had this, oh no, we're gonna get this hybrid, this, that, and the third. And he comes back and he takes his team to the Super Bowl. Like this shit, this uncanny, like it's not even heard of. I'm just like, wow, but was he really that injured? I don't know. But my point is, just stay healthy, Brock, because man, you got to stay healthy. That'll keep the 49ers where they need to be at bay competing. Now, I'm going to say this. Every team in the NFC has gotten better on paper. I'm going to leave it at that. They have gotten much better on paper. You saw how the NFC kind of like dwindled down in the playoffs. Green Bay looked dangerous. The Detroit Lions look ferocious. Listen, the Saints will be back. Like, their NFC
I
teams.
appreciate that. I hope so. I appreciate that.
Oh, they listen.
Yeah, I
They're
like to hear
going to
from.
be back. I can tell you. And you know what? There's two teams I hate playing that are no longer in the NFC West. It's the Saints and the Falcons. Like every time we play those teams, it's always a hard game. Why? Former NFC West team. So I guarantee you guys are going to be back. I think the Bears still stay at bay where they are. It's going to take them some time, but they loaded up on weapons. I think they're still struggling in the run game. I know they got DeAndre Swift, but at the end of the day, Deommodore Lenoir took him out. He ain't been the same since. So I just think the NFC isn't going to be this weak division of football anymore, weak conference of football anymore. And I'm excited. Football, 100 days to kickoff, baby. Let's go.
Oh yes, sir, bro. And we can't wait, man. We can't wait. I know it's that drier part of the off season where us, it's the content football creators. We're itching, we're like, we need the football back. But no, we know the feeling over here. We definitely do.
So, just kind of wrap it up. What has been your favorite kind of 49ers memory as a fan?
Woo. Okay, so I'm older. Not that much older, but I'm older, and this has to be the year 1994 because it was still in December, but that 95 Super Bowl where we beat the Chargers. But that wasn't the game that was the most memorable. The game was it was my birthday. It was like around January 15th, which is my birthday. I just can't remember the exact date. But that year we beat Dallas with Deion Sanders. Like that was like my most memorable moment because we couldn't beat Dallas for however many years prior to that. And we get Deion. We literally I think this was the year that ended the salary cap because we literally bought a defense. Like we had monopoly money and we went and got Ken Norton Jr., Toy Cook from the Saints, Tim McDonald from the Cardinals. Like they literally said, we are going to build this defense. And Deion Sanders came. And that year, I remember running outside in like negative 30-degree weather because I'm from the East Coast. It gets cold
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Connecticut, right? Negative 30-degree weather in my underwear. We did it. Like that was the most memorable moment at the age of whatever I was, 14, 13, 14. And my mom threw me a party, and I just thought that was the most memorable moment. I've had some bad moments because my birthday falls around those playoff games, and it sucks.
Oh, brutal.
It did, yes, because that Seattle Seahawk was the worst one, and I don't talk about it because my wife threw me this surprise birthday party that I did not want to go to. I did. They told me it wasn't a surprise party. I was gonna go play for my friend's mom because it was her birthday, and I was like, I can't let my mom down. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna go, but make sure they got a TV there. That was the year we played Seattle. I think Colin Kaepernick had a great first half, and then was terrible after that. Somebody got hurt in that game too, and that was probably I think I walked out. I left my party. I remember that. So had a good one, gave you a good one, and gave you a bad one.
You know what? You can't blame somebody for walking out when they see the team lose a big. Especially the
Bro,
playoff games. It's over after that. It's like, you know what? I had the energy. I had, it left me. I wish I could still be here. I can't anymore. I've had a time where I was in a very It should have been a much more fun family party where, it was like literally out of state in Florida when the Saints were playing the Bucks when, Drew Brees' last year. And I was so sad, we're going to redeem this. This is going to be the year. And I'm watching Drew Brees get retired with all my family. Everyone's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, just leave me alone for the next week.
I understood. I understand. I can relate.
It's painful when those happen.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Wayne. Do you want to let people know where they can find you?
Sure, man. Listen, I go by at the WayneBreezie just about everywhere on social media. I try to keep it uniform so to make it easy. You can find me. I do most of my shows live on YouTube, so at the WayneBreezie there. You can follow me on Instagram, X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. All the new stuff. But yeah, the WayneBreezie, man. I appreciate you guys. Thank y'all so much for having me on. This was fun, and I love to do it again. I just love to do it again. This was fun.
Hey, absolutely, Wayne. We appreciate that. We're definitely gonna have you back. Vice versa, we could pop over to your show.
Absolutely.
Hey,
Yes.
absolutely, bro. We love to hear that for real. This is definitely not the last time we're gonna record something together.
Thank
we
you,
appreciate
Ryan.
that for real.
Appreciate you guys.
Awesome.
Hey,
Well,
of course, man.
all of Wayne's links will be down in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, if you don't know ball, want to know ball, be sure to subscribe. Leave a like. Let us know in the comments the 49ers record. And we hope you have a great rest of your night. Thank you.